Information shared on the following program is for general information purposes only. It does not constitute legal, tax, investment, or other advice, nor is it intended to recommend any particular investments, products, or financial instruments. Always seek advice from your financial advisor, attorney, or accountant with regard to investment, legal, or tax questions.
Think this looks risky? Just wait till you see how much risk you're taking with your money.
Welcome to the only show in the country dedicated to helping savers worry less about money. The WorryFree Retirement, with offices in Louisville, Bowling Green, and Lexington. Your host, nationally recognized retirement specialist, 5-time author, and fiduciary, Tony Walker.
Are you a thrill seeker? Let's define thrill. To cause a experience or a sudden sharp feeling of excitement, as in the news thrilled him. To cause to have a shivering or tingling sensation. To cause to vibrate or tremble perceptibly. To become thrilled. To experience a sudden sharp excitement.
I felt this thrill going up my leg. I don't have that too often.
Need some examples of what thrill seekers like to do? How about shark swimming? How about this one, skydiving? Take a look at this 97-year-old World War II vet who jumped out of a plane over Normandy just the other day. Of course, when you're 97 years of age, is it really risky to jump out of a plane? I mean, heck, at that age, you're probably not even buying green bananas anymore. Do you really care if even the parachute opens? Or how about this poor girl we showed earlier, standing on a platform seeking a thrill-seeking experience known as bungee dropping? Oh, here's a good one. Here's yours truly with my wife Susan out on a remote excursion in the jungles of Costa Rica several years ago. Check out this zip line and how we had to literally use gloves, I kid you not, to slow us down. But you know what? Of all the thrill-seeking activities that one has, by far the most dangerous is this brand new concept known as wingsuiting. Welcome, folks, to the WorryFree Retirement. And if you're like me, if any of these scenes give you the EBGBs, well, you've come to the right place, because today we're going to discuss another death-defying act that savers attempt each and every day, and that's risking all of their hard-earned money in something most do not understand, and that's the stock market. These savers who are willing to risk what they've worked so hard to do, and they're risking things and things that are no more guaranteed than the rope attached to the ankles of that poor bungee jumper. Or what about wingsuiting? We've got to cover this, folks. This is a brand new thrill-seeking event that involves inserting your body into a nylon suit, climbing to the highest peak one can find, and then jumping off and flying, listen to this, over 100 miles per hour with the goal, this gets really crazy, with the goal to see how close you can get as you're flying 100 miles an hour off these cliffs to permanent objects. Now, statistics tell us the odds of living through this harrowing experience are not good. In fact, this activity is so risky that they say that 1 in 100,000 jumps will result in death. They even show us this nice little chart that actually shares the least risky places to jump from that might not result in death. That's nice. Problem is, due to the increased press of this wingsuiting, more and more inexperienced thrill seekers are starting to take up the sport, follow the herd, if you will. And that's what I mean by this more inexperienced folks that are probably going to jump these odds up right through the roof. Now, this is what we call the herd mentality. This idea that we don't want to miss out on the latest thrill, and in this case, wingsuiting or bungee dropping or any other thing, dangerous things like Mount Everest, climbing Mount Everest. Did you realize there's more and more deaths climbing Mount Everest? The reason is more and more people who don't know what they're doing are trying to climb the tallest mountain in the world. Now, here's the question I have for you. Is taking risk with your life really worth it? Well, to answer this question, we're going to ask our own Megan Murphy, who is literally swimming with the sharks. Megan, is it worth it?
No, Tony. Definitely not worth it.
Well, if that's your reaction, like Megan, maybe it's not worth it. Maybe you're taking all of your hard-earned money and placing it in the stock market, you got to ask yourself a question. Is taking all of this unnecessary risk with your money worth it? And more importantly, if there was a way to not risk so much of your money, would you want to know about it? Or would you just want to keep taking risk? Well, I've got good news. Today, we're going to show you how you can be worry-free without taking all of this risk with your money. You're watching the Worry-Free Retirement. I'll be right back.
And now it's time for the adventures of Stella and Scout. You've been watching the adventures of Stella and Scout.
Are you retired or retiring soon? With the stock market at an all-time high, do you really think it's wise to risk your 401k plan? Well, I'm retirement specialist Tony Walker, inviting you to my next free workshop, Safeguarding Your 401k from the Next Stock Market Crash, Tuesday, August 13th at 6 p.m. in Georgetown, Kentucky. Learn the secret to a worry-free retirement by attending. Log on now to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Welcome back to the Worry-Free Retirement, and our theme this week, and for the next 4 weeks is something we have created called the Pyramid of Misdirection, which is basically the financial world's attempt to get savers off their game by either putting the fear of missing out into their minds or compelling them to do things they really shouldn't do. Now, the 5 misdirections doled out by the financial world are as follows. We're covering the first one today: more risk, more money, more magic, more costs, and more fear. Compelling stuff indeed. Speaking of the word compelling, I like the translation of this word of compelling as compulsion. You see, we generally react to things and do things out of either fear or compulsion. Now, I recently fell victim to this notion of feeling compelled or compulsed to do something when I decided to invest in a dilapidated rental home, which was then located to my daughter and favorite son-in-law's home up in Fort Thomas, Kentucky, prior to them moving to Louisville, Kentucky. Now, I was certain that someone was going to want to buy this home as a fixer-upper, as we had done the same thing with our daughters Lacey's and Trey's home. This was their home in Fort Thomas, and then they fixed it up, and we made some good money on it. That's called flipping a home. Now, so when this rental home was, I thought, coming for sale, and it was dilapidated, folks, and I thought, man, we got to get this thing before somebody else buys it and fixes it up and flips it. Well, it turns out that this home turned out to be very, very nice. Here's the final picture of it. It looked great. The problem was this was a flop. Why is that? Because here's who made money on this home: the contractor that we hired, the real estate agent that sold the home, the city of Fort Thomas, because we increased the value, which increased the property taxes, and then all the utilities we had to pay. So here's the point. I purchased this home thinking to make money because I was under compulsion and instead lost my proverbial shirt. So why did I do it? Well, it wasn't out of fear. I wasn't afraid of anything, but I was compelled to do it because here's the thing: human nature kicked in, and I thought I could make some money and somebody else was going to buy it and make money. Bad move on my part. So let's get back to the stock market. Why do we kind of just blindly invest savings into something that is so risky? Well, if you go back in time, there's plenty of evidence that the stock market is unpredictable. Nobody can predict it, and markets do crash. Well, we all know about the crash in the 1920s, which led to the Great Depression, and more recently 2008. But did you realize all the way back in 1873 there was a panic, a crash? In fact, it happened in Europe, but it spiraled all the way over to the United States, and it affected the railroads. In fact, many of the railroads back then, because of the collapse, lost their proverbial shirts. What happened was the Europeans started selling the railroad bonds. The bonds, that's what railroads were using to borrow money to get this thing going, fell into ruin. So it had happened overnight. Then there was the panic of 1893 that ripped through the economy. It had to do with the stocks being sold because people back then wanted to exchange those stocks into gold. In those days, gold actually was used to value our currency and was actually worth something back then and had a fair market value. So now we move forward to 2008. Everybody remembers 2008. Everything was going great guns. And then the housing market collapsed. Look at this chart here, folks. All the different things that happened in 2008. But here's the point. Nobody, and I mean nobody, saw the dangers of following the herd prior to 2008. Very few people sold out of the market, and again, many people lost their proverbial shirts. It happened, and it can happen again. So taking all of this risk with our money by trying to predict an uncertain future begs the following three questions, and here they are. First of all, and you can probably answer the first two, do you currently have money in the stock market? Yes or no? If so, what percent of your money is currently invested in the stock market? Is it 20%, 40%, all of it? Now here's the big question. You've got money in the market, right? Be honest. Can you explain what the stock market is, and do you really and truly understand the risks of it? You know, in one person's opinion here, the stock market, again, is headed for a correction. We see this particular article here, and again, nobody knows the market, folks, but this is pretty cool. It's wealthmanagement.com. It just came out. Brad Ziegler asked this question. Mr. Bear, the bear market means it's going to possibly tank, wild ride. And look at that. Look at the gyrations this thing has gone through. This is what the stock market can do, and nobody knows whether it's going to go up or down. This is why in our practice, we never suggest, listen closely, if you are a saver, we never suggest that a saver puts more than 30% of their overall savings into the stock market. And our question is, if we could show you how to do this without all of this risk, in other words, retire worry-free, we're assuming you'd want to do it. Now, I'm going to share right now a very simple approach of having your cake and eating it too. You know, I recently spoke to a group in downtown Louisville called the AAERT. It was the American Association of Electronic Reporters and Transcribers. Now, folks, these were people from all over the country. Again, it was at a cool hotel in downtown Louisville, 21C. But anyway, afterwards, what I'm going to show you in the next segment, afterwards a person came up to me and said, Tony, that was totally interesting, and I've never seen anything like that. How come my stockbroker never shares this idea with me? Well, folks, I'm going to come back and I'm going to show you exactly what I shared with this audience. It's something we've been doing in our practice for years, and if you're a saver and you don't like taking a lot of risk, you're going to love this. Stay tuned. I'll be right back.
Win or lose, games are a blast, but playing around with your retirement is serious business. So don't leave your retirement to chance. Get a retirement game plan from well-known retirement specialist Tony Walker. Learn how to be worry-free in retirement with a safe and simple game plan that includes mailbox money for life. To meet in person with Tony, log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com.
All right, our Tony in the Trenches is a great question. Tony, I hear you talk about the risk of the stock market, but I've made a lot of money in my 401k these last few years as a result. So what are the chances of us going through another market correction, and how might that affect my retirement income if we do? Now, this is a great question, and let me answer this question with a great statistic. Again, the past may not happen like this in the future, but it certainly gives us some room to think about. And remember that the pyramid of misdirection tells us that Wall Street wants us to feel like we're missing out, that if we don't invest in the stock market, if we're not willing to take more risk, that over the long term, again, we may not be able to retire worry-free. So look at this statistic. Over the last 100 years, the Dow Jones Industrial Average has experienced 15 drops of at least 20%. Now, an average of about 1 every 7 years. Think about that, folks. Now we're talking about you being retired. You've got to visualize yourself retired and this possibly happening. Now, the average loss, this is really startling, of those drops is 38.7% and lasts an average of 403 days. 403 days. Now you say, well, that's not a long time. Well, not if you're 40 or 50 years of age, but what if you've just retired and all of a sudden this happens? The bottom line, no one can predict what the stock market is going to do, which means the stock market is a risky place to do business. And by placing your trust and your money with someone who cannot predict the future is scary indeed. Now, if you're just now joining us, I recently spoke at a conference, and what I'm about to share with you, I shared with some of these participants all over the country. They didn't know me from Adam. And I had several of them come up and say, Tony, why isn't anybody talking about this? Oh, speaking of predicting the future, we just celebrated the birth of our second grandchild, Ivy, who is now the little sister to Scout. Now, prior to the birth of Ivy, my wife asked all the family members to guess the upcoming child's date of birth, sex, weight, and length. Now look at this. This is everybody, they kid with me, they call me poodles. But anyway, May 13th was what I guessed. That happened. I guessed it would be a female. Look at that, everybody thought a male. No, Ivy's a female. And I actually guessed the weight. I thought that was pretty cool. So I got 3 out of 4, pretty impressive. I guess what I need to do now is go out and buy me a lottery ticket. All right, so what we've done, again at this conference that I spoke at, I'm going to share with you these charts, and this will help you understand how we can help you be worry-free without all of this risk. Let's take a look at the first chart. And again, the essence of time, I got to go through this pretty quickly. Now what we did, we imagined someone retired 3 years prior to 2008. Remember, 2008, the market went down 37%. You with me? So you've just retired. We do this all the time. Somebody will come in and they'll say, Tony, can I retire at 60? Well, sometimes they can. With our experience in working with thousands of savers, literally, folks, we've done over 4,000 income plans. I've seen in person, I can document this, I've seen in person over 10,000 people. I know what I'm doing in this area, and retirement planning is right up our alley. So in this case, this person said, well, I want to retire, but I'm not going to take my money out of the market. I'm just going to rely on the market because it's done great. Okay, great. So you got 300,000 in this case. The market made 4.9. Again, this is factual. This is prior to 2008. But you needed $20,000 because you're retired, right? Well, that brings your account down to $293. But you're saying, well, that's not bad. I got $20,000. I still got $293. So the next year you start at $293. The market goes up almost 16%. You need your $20,000. But look at that. Because the market went up, you've actually got more money. Talking about worry-free living. This is great, right? Next year, you start at your $316, the market still makes a nice return. You take your $20,000 out, $313, everybody's happy. Until 2008 hits. You've got $313, the market goes down 37%. You still need to live, right? I mean, you call up your broker, what are they going to tell you? You can't have any money? You still need your $20,000. Now look at this. 4 years into retirement, you're down to $184,000. That's about as scary as jumping out of that trolley there or whatever that thing was when you're bungee dropping.
I felt this thrill going up my leg. I mean, I don't have that too often.
All right, let's go to the next slide. So here's what I showed this group, and this is what we've done for years. We use something called fixed indexed annuities. Now keep in mind, folks, there's all kinds of different annuities, different participation rates. Some are income oriented. This is just an accumulation product. We can show you all the different nuances of annuities. We're experts in this area. And again, this is just an example. But if we did the same thing with a 40% participation annuity, we don't put it in the stock market, but we link it to the market with this product. We get 40% of 4.9, 1.96. Okay, we still got 285, not bad. The next year we have 285. The market goes up almost 16. We get 40% of the 16 or 6. Take out our 20, we got 282. Still not bad. Start out at our 282. The next year the market makes about 5.5. We get 40%. Remember, folks, there's no risk whatsoever as you're getting ready to see with this strategy. So we're actually kind of behind. Let's go back to that last screen, Megan. The last screen, we're behind. And you're going, gosh, I should have been following the herd. Why not just stay in the stock market? Well, let's go back and see what happened here. Notice we're starting at 268. The market goes down 37%, but we lose 0. See, with a fixed indexed annuity, there is no risk. What you made the prior year, you get to keep. So we still take out our 20, we're down to 248. So let's do a side-by-side comparison. All right, if you followed the herd and you were over there with Wally World, you're down to 184. Now, will the market come back? I don't know, it could. But in the meantime, you're in the throes of retirement, folks, versus you could have had 248. So you say, Tony, this is all well and good, but do you do only annuities? Do you not do any money in the market? Look at this next slide. This is awesome. This is something we came up with years ago. We actually trademarked it. It's called the Worry-Free Split IRA concept. Now, people have used buckets to explain finances for years. That's nothing new, but the way our process works and the way our staff implements this is really cool stuff because we give you some control. Control, access, and use of your money. So the first bucket we put money in through our Charles Schwab platform. Now, while a lot of advisors are charging you 1.5% and all these high fees to manage your money, our fee is a low 0.6%. So we might put 20 to 30% of your money in the Schwab bucket. Well, why do we do that? For immediate income, for low fees, for flexibility. And then in the other bucket, this is what we use for what I call mailbox money. This is where the annuities go because we've got to have protection. And the annuity, since they're the only instrument that can guarantee lifetime income, we have that as our buffer or our backstop. So when you work with Tony Walker Financial, you get the best of both worlds. If you want to have some money in the market with very, very low fees, some of the lowest in the industry, and you want a retirement expert managing all this, our process that we offer, the Worry-Free Retirement, will do that. If you want some annuities, we'll figure out the best annuity that works for your situation. So here's what I suggest you do right now. If you're interested in going through an analysis, there's absolutely no cost or obligation. Why don't you log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. What will happen when you go to our website is we will contact you to set up a time to talk with me by phone in person, or we can meet in person at either our Bowling Green, Louisville, or our new Lexington office. Oh, by the way, I'm going to be over in Georgetown, Kentucky. Now, why Georgetown, Kentucky? Well, we've had some feedback from people over at the Toyota plant, so I'm going to host a workshop over there on Tuesday, August 13th at 6 p.m. in Georgetown. Now, it's not just for Toyota folks. This is for anybody that has a 401k, prior 401k, you're already retired, but you want to have something like the split IRA concept to protect more of your money and, most importantly, make sure you don't run out of it. Again, log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com if you'd like to register for that free workshop. Well, what does the Bible have to say about taking all this risk? And more importantly, it addresses the issue of why we would take risk when we really don't have to. Good stuff coming up. I got to get me a cup of coffee. I'll be right back. Are you retired or retiring soon? With the stock market at an all-time high, do you really think it's wise to risk your 401k plan? Well, I'm retirement specialist Tony Walker, inviting you to my next free workshop, Safeguarding Your 401k from the Next Stock Market Crash, Tuesday, August 13th at 6 p.m. in Georgetown, Kentucky. Learn the secret to a worry-free retirement by attending. Log on now to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Welcome back to the Worry-Free Retirement, and we're trying to delve into this subject of why do people take risk? And what's interesting as we watch this video of someone strapping onto their ankles a bungee cord, notice the gentleman that's probably made money on this particular tour strapping this young lady into these cords and encouraging her to jump. Ask yourself a question. He's made money regardless of what happens to her. She's the one taking all the risk. So in return, this is happening with you. You take all of your money and you maybe put it all with Wall Street, and they're making money on your money, which is perfectly legal and ethical. The problem is you're the one taking all the risk. They have no skin in the game. So why do we do this? It's an interesting question. Why would we take all this risk to make more and more money when in many cases what I see is people would have plenty of money without the risk? Well, we've got to turn to God's Word for a little help here. Let's go to Proverbs 30, and we're going to cover chapter 30, verses 7 through 9. And it says, 2 things that I ask of thee. This is the author of Proverbs. Do not refuse me these things before I die. The author says in verse 8, keep deception and lies far from me. And this is the key. Also, give me neither poverty nor riches. Feed me with the portion of food. The portion of food. Then he says in verse 9, lest I be full and deny thee and say, who is the Lord? You know, friend, the worst place you and I can find ourselves is chasing after the world's ways in hopes of being full. Kind of like those huge portions we tend to eat at the restaurants. You know, we just keep eating and eating and eating, and we've actually had our portion many minutes or hours ago. The problem is with eating too much food in this example, we get full, but guess what? A little while later, we get hungry again. There's no difference with money. You know, most of us have plenty of money. Human nature kicks in and says, you know what? I think I need more and more money. The financial world knows this is where our human nature will take us. The Bible reminds us of this. And what do? They instill fear and compulsion, the fear of missing out, the fear of following the herd. We're not going to have enough money.
I felt this thrill going up my leg. I mean, I don't have that too often.
And in the end result, here's what can happen. The scariest part of this pursuit of it all, the riskiest part of this pursuit, is we end up denying God in the process. You know, one of our new staff members at Tony Walker Financial recently asked me, she said, Tony, she was inquisitive. She sees how hard I work. I see on average 20 to 30 people a week. Shanna said, Tony, I take it you've got enough money to retire, don't you? And I said, yeah, I guess I could if I wanted to. And she said, well, why don't you? Why are you working so hard? And I said, Shanna, for me, I am so thankful that God has given me the health, the stamina, and quite frankly, the wisdom of 35 years to understand savers and understand how to protect their money. I feel like it would actually be selfish of me to retire. In other words, at this stage of my game, it ain't about the money, folks. It's about continually helping as many people as I can. Now, an interesting verse of Scripture that motivates me and should motivate you is found in 1 Thessalonians 4:10, and at the very end of that Scripture, it simply says, excel still more. So what that tells me is God has gifted me with good health, a great wife, a great staff, and clients who trust me with their money. And rather than just hoarding a bunch of money so I can retire early and wish them well, I've decided to continue to work as long as God would grant me the privilege to continue to help as many savers as possible. Well, how about you? You may be sitting there saying, well, Tony, I don't have an advisor who talks like this. I don't have an advisor who's more concerned about the return of my money than on it. How can I get started working with you? That's the best part. All you got to do is log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Now, here's how this works. When you contact our office, we contact you. I'll either set up a phone appointment to discuss your situation, or if an appointment warrants in person, we'll make that happen at no cost or obligation. We can meet in our Bowling Green, Louisville, or our brand new offices in Lexington. So take advantage of this opportunity to meet with somebody with 35 years in the trenches, someone who specifically helps savers worry less about money. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Well, we hope you've enjoyed today's program. I look forward to seeing you next week as we get into the second topic of this whole issue of risking money and following the herd. Good stuff coming up next week. But you remember, between now and then, if all else fails, you be worry-free. Make it a good one.